The following contains footage of an M-rated game. Viewer discretion is advised.
I have to say, when I bought the Half-Life bundle on Steam, I wasn't totally sure what to expect from it. I had heard a lot about how good these games are, but I never really heard any specific details about them. Half-Life 2 is, it's really, it's kind of, Let's just start with the review. So we open up with
shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine.
Okay, after that bit of nightmare fuel, we open up with our main character. Once again, you take control of theoretical physicist and Gordon Freeman. The game takes place briefly after the first game, presumably after Gordon decides to work for G-Man. Wait a minute, Gordon Freeman, G-Man. I wonder if there's some kind of connection. Probably not. So the game begins similarly to the first one, only the train ride here is much shorter, which is nice. So after exiting, we find ourselves in City 17. What happened to City 1 through 16? I have no idea. So we exit the train to find a giant screen with some old dude spewing propaganda that may or may not be relevant to the plot, and a Vortigaunt sweeping up trash? Yeah, those things that fired lightning at your face in the last game, they're friendly now. And now I discover one of the new gameplay elements they added. See, in the last game they had so you could push crates around and stuff, but here they've implemented a physics engine, and you can now pick up and even throw stuff. And yes, this game implements this feature a lot. So I'm on my merry way until I'm stopped by these guards. One of them tells me to follow him. I do so, and he reveals himself to be Barney. For those of you that don't know, Barney is the main protagonist of Half-Life Blue Ship. As for how he and Gordon know each other, I have no idea. So Barney sends us out into the plaza, and we're free to explore a bit. I think this is something I should talk about now. Unlike Half-Life, which sent you through a claustrophobic abandoned facility, Half-Life 2 gives you a bit more elbow room. There's a lot more room for exploring. Unfortunately though, the path is still very linear, and since there's usually only one path to take, it makes it a lot easier to get lost as well. It took me a good 5 minutes or so before I finally found the way I was supposed to go, and I got stuck countless other times as well. But on the plus side, you remember how I said one of my favorite parts of the original Half-Life was when you were screwing around messing with the world around you? Well, I kind of feel that this game does that even better. So I made my way into this hotel, found some people, and then discovered that those guards earlier, they apparently aren't just doing their jobs. They're apparently the bad guys. Eventually I get caught and we're bailed out by our new love interest, I think? Her name is Alex. She leads us to a few secret passageways while spewing exposition. Alright, I think I should get this criticism out of the way. The narrative is awkward. The game uses a different method of storytelling than other games. Basically, there are no pre-rendered cutscenes, unless you count the opening, and that one part with Alex. Instead, the game allows you to control Gordon the whole time, and instead of cutscenes, it has moments of exposition, where the other characters try to fill you in on what's going on. It's honestly kind of hard to judge how effectively it's being used here, as I haven't really seen this much in other games. My best guess is they wanted to show how storytelling could be done differently in video games, and to that extent it works, since you wouldn't be able to do this kind of thing in a movie or a book. One of the downsides to it though is that there's not much to it. The moments where the characters start spewing exposition at you aren't very interesting, and the distance between each interval of storytelling is really long. By the time I get to the next one, I've kind of forgotten everything I've been told prior. I should probably also mention Gordon Freeman now. In my last review I told you how Gordon's muteness was utilized very well, but that's not so much the case here. In Half-Life, Gordon could have been anyone. He never had to be a hero or a villain, he was simply trying to save his own life. That's why you were allowed to kill whomever you wanted with little to no repercussion. But you can't really do that here since almost everyone who's not trying to kill you is requisite to the narrative. And as such, the game will not let you harm any innocents. In addition to this, the characters talk about Gordon Freeman like he's some kind of hero, when all he's really done prior to this is save himself. And since he's now being regarded as a hero, him being a mute kind of hurts the story they're going for here. But on another note, the game does utilize its unique style of storytelling a bit better than Half-Life. Half-Life did the same style of storytelling by opting out of using cutscenes and presenting most of its story in the world around you, but mostly boiled down to escape the facility, don't die. With Half-Life 2, the story is a lot more intricate, and as such, the storytelling element has more of a use. Alright, moving on. So they give me my suit back and try to teleport me, but it goes wrong and I'm sent just outside of the lab. So I'm also given my crowbar back as our first weapon.
Good luck out there, buddy.
The crowbar is useful for tearing down wood and stuff, but it doesn't really get used as a weapon that often. After a short while I find myself in a hallway and assaulting a couple more guards, one of which drops our first long range weapon, the pistol. It's pretty standard as far as guns go. The game is extremely linear, so naturally I just continue the preset path. I take out some more of the guards and eventually find the MP7. It has a faster fire rate than the pistol, and its secondary fire launches grenades. Also, you know how the main source of challenge in the original Half-Life was the fact that nearly all of your weapons had limited ammo? That's still the case here, but unlike in the first game, we're given these ammo boxes every so often to restock on ammo, and they can be used an infinite number of times. The only catch is they're not always available, so the challenge of resource management is still very much present. So I continue on my way until I eventually come across the airboat, our first vehicle. Not too much to say, it handles decently. So I drive along until I come to an impasse, and now we're forced to take a detour. So we kill some of these guys and eventually open the gate. Then I continue on my merry way until I get stopped by another one. Alright, so now I exit the vehicle again and roam around, while this annoying as piss helicopter fires unlimited bullets straight at me. Eventually I open that gate and head back out, only to find that the helicopter is still following me. Fantastic. So I keep going until, holy crap, this thing is annoying. Eventually, I end up in another secluded base, and these guys are kind enough to supply my boat with a weapon. Finally. So after another short path, I find myself at the final showdown between me and this mechanical monster. Send that sucker to hell and I'm off. So I continue some more and I meet up again with Alex and some other people. I play with Alex and our pet robot named Dog, and it's here that I'm introduced to the iconic weapon of this game known as the gravity gun. I can't stay for long though, as the base comes under fire, and with that I'm forced to head down to Ravenholm. One of my friends has actually cited this level as being his personal favorite video game level of all time. One noteworthy thing about this level is that I get to try out my new gravity gun. Basically, the weapon lets you pick things up and throw them, and the cool thing about it is that it lets you turn whatever you find laying on the ground into a makeshift bullet. And if you're skillful with where you aim, you can use some items multiple times. I have to say this weapon is pretty creative, and it's good if you want to conserve ammo on your other weapons. Another thing about this level is, it's horrifying! The minute I stepped in, it felt like I was playing a survival horror game. I'm also given a shotgun and it's a pretty effective weapon. The only real problem I have with this level is that I keep getting lost. Everything is so dark, it's difficult not to lose your way, especially considering there are a few routes where I can't tell if I'm expected to head down there to progress or just to get more ammo. It's kind of a mess, really. Eventually I make my way into a mine, and apparently I'm supposed to descend down the hard way. Huh. So I get lost again until I eventually find a way out, and after another walk I end up at another rebel fortress. And it's here that I'm given my next vehicle, the car. And this might be my least favorite part of the game. Where do I begin? First off, I think I'll talk about the car. The only positive thing I can say about it is that as long as you have it, you have infinite ammo for the MP7. The It controls extremely awkwardly and sometimes you end up getting stuck, and when that happens you have to get out and use your gravity gun on it. This wouldn't be too much of a problem, except this chapter is filled with extremely annoying enemies. You almost never get a break from them. Let's start with the antlions. They're arguably the most annoying creatures in the game. They respawn infinitely and they're extremely quick. There's no right way to combat them. You simply have to drive through them and avoid them. Along the way you'll also have to deal with other threats, like the guards, those ball things that Dog was playing with, and these weird spaceship things that seem to follow you everywhere. And there are quite a few puzzles to solve along the way, which is kind of tricky with all the enemies out to get you, especially the antlions. Did I mention the antlions? The antlions are annoying. They're everywhere. They never stop. I hate them so much. I want them all in hell. They're just so annoying. They're horrible. They're evil. Sorry about that. I just really hate these antlions. So when I arrive at the next chapter, I'm told to stay out the sand because, guess what? More antlions! I tried to avoid the sand at all costs, but that proved to be much more trouble than it's worth, so I decided screw it and just ran through until eventually I came across this monstrosity. Dear God, why? So I take down this sin against nature and a Vortigaunt comes in and rips something out of it. Gross. I have to say I find it interesting that every single Vortigaunt is friendly in this game. I can believe them being sentient, but to think every single one of them is a good guy now? It's not really that important. So he gives me this sack thing, and apparently it's bait for the antlions. As long as I have this weapon, they cannot harm me even if I harm them, and I get to control them as my own miniature army. Can I just say how much I love this? This is how you reward the player after dealing with something as annoying as antlions. So now I head down to Nova Prospect. I think it's some kind of abandoned jail or lab or something? I don't know. All I know is it's filled with guards. I keep calling them guards. Apparently these guards are known as the Combine. And from what I can gather from the story, they're being led by a guy named Dr. Bean. For those of you who recognize him but don't know him, he's basically what Dr. Hax is before his head's been inflated in Gmod.
Hacks!
From what I can gather, Dr. Bean has made an alliance with some sort of aliens that have invaded the world. At least I think that's what's going on. And I guess the rebels just want to get rid of the aliens and go back to life as it was before the Resonance Cascade? Yeah, the whole no cutscenes thing is kind of a double-edged sword. The only thing I know without a doubt is that Dr. Bean is supposed to be the villain here. And from here on out, the guards will be known as the Combine. So after I exit Nova Prospect, I end up in another facility filled with Combine and make it through there. And now I'm teleported all the way back to City 17, only now it's all broken and destroyed and stuff. I guess complete war is broken out or something. So now I'm introduced to a new gameplay element, teammates. All I can really say is that anyone who's not a medic, dispensable. Heck, even the medics might not be worth keeping around. I say that because their AI is pretty bad. I guess that's probably why they wanted Gordon to lead the attack, since even with him they're pretty lousy when it comes to combat. Sometimes a few plot essential NPCs like Alex or Barney will come in and help you out, and they're significantly more useful thanks to their story-driven invulnerability, but everyone else is pretty much the equivalent to ammo in this game. If you can conserve them, great, but if you can't, don't bother. You'll find more along the way regardless. Also, you know when I said that platforming may be easier with a controller? I was wrong. Fortunately, there is very little of that in this game. So that's pretty much it for this portion of the game. Now I make it to the final portion of the game, and boy is there a payoff for all of this. It starts by confiscating all of our weapons. Pretty brutal, right? Well, it would be if it weren't for one particular weapon surviving, the gravity gun. That's right, the iconic weapon of this game just got even more awesome. How awesome? That awesome.
I have no way to kill cowards. Yes, I like this new weapon. New weapon is good. New gun is unfair to tiny baby enemies. Now it's coward killing time! You are dead. Not a big surprise. All of you are dead!
So I have a final confrontation with Dr. Bean, and ends with the G-Man interrupting reality, and possibly foreshadowing to the next game.
Seems as if you only just arrived.
Whew. This was a long one. I know this game has a lot of praise behind it, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not quite seeing it. I mean, the game's really well made, it's got nice graphics, and the physics engine is pretty swell, but all in all, I mainly found it to be an average first-person shooter. The only part I thoroughly enjoyed was the end when we got that epic gravity gun, and even then that was just because it made me feel powerful. If the entire game had been like that, it would have been boring. But as a whole, the game just doesn't captivate me as much as I expected. Maybe there's something here that I'm missing or something, but I just can't get that into it. If anything I've told you about it strikes you well, then do consider getting it during a Steam sale. If not, well, then I guess it might not be your thing. Until next time, see ya!